Coaches, players, and parents, good October to everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Chaz Henry. I am the founder of PowerChalk.com, and I'm talking today with Coach Bill Renner. Bill is a former NFL kicker, and in fact, I could probably put up 3 or 4 different slides here of accolades, but he's also a 25-year high school coach. He's got a master's degree in exercise physiology. And I've been accused of being a computer geek. Bill, I guess, would be a mechanics geek. He wrote his master's thesis on punting. So, while he's put multiple kickers into the NFL, this fall he chalked up another NFLer when his son, Bryn Renner, was signed by the Denver Broncos. Bill, congrats to both of you. I've seen you guys work together, and it's got to be a rewarding outcome to a lot of hard work.
It is. Like any athlete, Bryn had a goal, and I was fortunate enough to be able to assist him and continuing his progression from as a young man all the way through to the pros. And so that's rewarding as a coach, but it's also rewarding when you're a father and you kind of watch every little detail. Sometimes as a coach, you get him on the field, you don't get the other part of it, but to experience both with him has been absolute pleasure.
Well, it's great stuff. And coaches, I've asked Bill to come in today and talk us through quarterback throwing. And as you've seen in these webinars, I'm inviting pro coaches to come in and break down the mechanics of these sports motions. And while there's 32 guys in this country who can throw a football through a tire 32 yards away, I'm not sure there's one who knows better than Bill how that football got there. Bill, tell us how that football got there.
Yeah, there's certain positions you have to be in as a quarterback or even as any thrower, striker, that will determine where and how the ball flies. And I specifically coach those positions. There's other things people might say are important, but if it doesn't affect ball flight or help contribute to the accuracy, I don't coach it. And I do that whether I'm coaching kickers, punters, or quarterbacks. And so it's a transfer of energy skill that we need to maximize and be efficient, but those key elements are ones that can't be compromised if you want to be accurate in terms of throwing. And that's kind of the basis from which I do my drill work. I coach the kids. The lens that I look at the kids through is how do we make them mechanically efficient so they can control ball flight and at the same time not injure themselves. They can perform multiple repetitions without a decrease in performance or energy level, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the lens that this will look at through.
Well, use the word key. And coaches, there's a function within PowerChalk called Keyframes, and what Keyframes are positions that you mark in the video. They're bookmarks, or you'll hear a lot of different terms when people talk about keyframes, but they're still frames that define the start and end points of any kinetic chain, and that's really what we're talking about here. So with that, let's dive right in. And what I'm going to do, I've got a slide here to kind of show you how I get there, but I'm going to just jump right in. In my locker, in my PowerChalk locker, I've got my videos. I've got 107 videos, and I just take any one of those videos, click on it, and say Chalk Talk Analyze. So with that, it brings me to the Chalk Talk Telestrator. Now what we did, we went out last Sunday, and Bill had a workout with a handful of high school quarterbacks. And we also fortunate enough to have Bryn there. We filmed the other QBs, and we're going to talk today about how to get them side by side and how to kind of bring a structure to that analysis. So what we've done with Bryn, I've got Bryn up here in slow motion. What we did is Bill has come up with a dictionary, if you will, of these key moments. So I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to pop up the Keyframe Editor. So if you're not familiar, there's a little keyhole over to the left side of the timeline that you can define your own keys. So you can just hit plus, plus, plus. So what Bill has done is gone through and defined 8 positions. So with that, let's talk our way through this, Bill. The first position that you've marked is two-hand, and that's about where I've frozen Bryn right here.
Okay, I think you got to go back, go forward just a little bit more when he hits the last step.
Yeah, I'm rolling forward. Yeah, so you're right. He's got 2 hands on the ball. So really, 2 hands is what? Give me a sentence to go with 2 hands.
Right. When the quarterback takes the ball, he needs to put it in what I call top of the drop setup, and that's characterized by when he has 2 hands on the ball, and he needs that ball to be no higher than his sternum no higher than his clavicle, no closer than his sternum, and no farther back than his armpit, and no lower than the bottom of his chest. That's the area that he can hold that in, and that allows him to load correctly when he takes his arm back. Two hands, it means we'll stop the video when he starts to take his front hand off the ball to throw. That's where two hands means. When is the last time he has two hands on it? So that's right. The first keyframe. The purpose of that is that if that ball drops down as he's going back or it gets too high, then his load position, meaning when he pulls the ball back, it's going to take a longer amount of time to get it to the load position to be able to throw it. So you notice Brent here, when his hands come off and he separates, his elbows are equal and opposite, and the nose of the ball turns backwards. Okay, it doesn't go down below his breastplate. Tim Tebow had a problem that he would lower the ball almost down to his waist, and so he would have what we would call a long circle. So your arm's going to make a circle to get the ball back up to the throwing position, and we want to have as tight a circle as possible because that allows us to push and generate ground force energy with our back foot at the same time while our hand is loading the ball. So two hands starts the load of the ball backwards, and that's the position you want to, first keyframe you want to stop in is what happens when his first hand comes off the ball.
Right. Okay. So you labeled that as 417. We're on 417 right now. So really the exact position, and really I'm trying to I'm asking dumb questions, but I'm trying to put it in terms that a parent who doesn't have a degree in exercise physiology could go mark these same frames, bring them to you, and say, okay, coach, I've got my son marked, and now let's talk about what we're looking for in these frames. So it's really the last, like you said, the last time that he's got two hands on the ball, and that's why you marked just before there. So, yes. So with that, let's go to front touch. You mark, I'm going to roll through very slowly to 435, which is where you marked front touch. So
okay.
In this case, front touch applies to?
It applies to his toe. When his front foot lands, okay. That's going to initiate the movement of his upper body is going to start to move forward. So if you watch his spine, if we went back to foot strike, his front foot touch, and drew a line down the center of his spine, what you're going to see there is he's going to start to push off his back foot. Now notice in this picture his knee is inside his back foot. That tells me that he's loaded up his instep so he can push his body forward and transfer weight. Okay? So as you see here, he hits foot strike, and that starts the ground force energy from his back foot up through his knee, through his hip, and starts up the right side of his throwing body. So you see how much he's moved his weight forward. So front touch starts that. The other part of that, if you go back to where the foot strike is, keyframe 2, the other part of that is what does he do with the ball? So we're looking for him to push off his back foot. This starts the sequence. And then notice what happens to the ball as he starts to push, that the ball will start to come upward, but his elbow will remain in a 90-degree angle. So you see that rotation of his elbow backing up, and now he's loaded up to start to throw. So once he has his body moving forward, that's when that front toe hits, that's when he starts to push against the ground, and it starts that weight shift, which we go to the third position. And now the weight shift will occur to the front foot. So you get toe strike, you get his spine or his whole body moving forward, and now when he gets to weight shift, he'll start rotating his hips to get all the weight on his front foot. And you can see that the weight shift frame is, you see where his back foot is coming off the ground.
Right.
And we stopped it right where his toe was last on the ground for that particular picture. So you would go to the picture where you see his toe come up and just go back one or two frames, and that's weight shift. We now know that he has all his weight on the ball of his front foot, and his front knee is slightly bent, and that's the body position you need to be in to now rotate your hips over top of your front foot as opposed to spinning around your spine. If his back foot was on the ground, then we would know that at some point from front touch where his his spine and his body need to move forward to his front foot, at some point he stops, and he would then just become spinning around his spine as opposed to moving forward, and that really affects the velocity of the ball. What that does, the velocity of the ball allows you to throw it straight on line longer. So I give the analogy, if you were going to shoot a gun, that bullet wouldn't stay on line a greater distance than if you had a rifle. So we wanted to once he hit front touch, to start his body moving forward, and then when he gets to weight shift, that's where the rotation of the hips come in, and it happens over top of the ball of his foot, front foot.
Right. So again, just to, and what you'll notice, coaches, is Bill is giving us things to look at. He's giving us judgments, about where Bren's at, but the keyframes themselves are judgment-free. So really, weight shift in this case, I'm on 454, where he marked weight shift. You could also see that as if we called the step 2 front touch, you could call this back lift. So that's the key, that he used to mark that frame, is where that back foot. I mean, by definition, if that back foot came off the ground, then all of his weight is now on his front side. So let's go to 460 back side.
Okay, when we get to the back side, what we're looking at is the ball position. Elite throwers are able to lay their hand off, and then as back as far as possible, and then they medial rotate, or they rotate it forward. So when you draw that arrow on the back side, you see the ball is still behind him, and behind his ear, behind his body. So he's going to generate a lot of, as his hips rotate, it'll go up into his shoulder, then his elbow, then his wrist. And because he's laid off, it's like cracking a whip. He'll generate a lot of arm speed because of being able to lay the ball off on his backside. You'll see some kids, when I first start teaching, they don't have the shoulder mobility and flexibility and stability to be able to lay that off. So we do some stretching exercises, some strengthening exercises to help them be able, when they get to the backside, to have that arm, as parallel to the ground as they can, really. And that allows them to delay the energy wave, the moving energy that's coming up on them. It allows them to delay that and really accelerate their arm, their elbow, their wrist through the ball. So that's what backside is. You want to draw that arrow on the backside like you saw previously, and look at that.
And coaches, to help you guys mark these same frames, and again, if we were to do this independently and bring them together, that we'd mark the same frames. I'm looking at backside, and if we draw a line on the back of his head, I think that would also be a way to mark this frame, because it's still in the back. It's reached the backside of his head, and now front side would be when it crosses over and crosses to the front. So it's really those. That's kind of our two markers, is it not?
Yes. And then the couple other positions you want to look at when you get to backside, if you move that back to 460 there, his left elbow needs to be right over top of his knee, and his head needs to be inside of his knee. And what that does is there's a time period where when you're throwing, your left side has to stabilize, so the only thing moving is your weight shift and your arm going forward in a linear fashion. So rotation of the hip stops, the arm accelerates, finishes that wave of energy, finishes going through his arm, and it has to be linear. So we're looking at that backside position to make sure that his elbow is stopped, his shoulders get square, and his head stays inside his knee. Those three positions when we get to backside also is what we're looking for.
It's amazing, Bill, so some of the terms you're using. Ted Williams said the hips lead the hands. And really, we're talking about the same thing here. We're talking about, getting that core rotation, to bring the arm around.
Yes, it's all the same. Anytime you're going to transfer energy and you're rotating with your hips, the hips always is the power source, and that the rest of the body and the arm and the hand, they just deliver that energy. And so the key is, can you get in that right position? Can you shift your weight at the right time? And can you just take that summation of forces and sink it to the point where all the energy goes right into that release point, where the index finger and the middle finger are going to just accelerate right off the ball, as you can see Bren's doing. So once we get stable, then it's just a matter of the arms, the only thing that's moving, and our release point needs to be in front of our face. I always tell our kids, I said, if you play basketball and you know how to shoot a jumper semi correctly, that arm position, that elbow position is out in front of your face, and that's where you release the football, is you release out in front, right where you see Brent's doing in front of his body. And now we know that our hips, our body, and everything was behind the throw. Right. So the reason these are important, as I mentioned earlier, if you don't do these, then the ball flight has a specific appearance that can tell you what you did wrong in any one of these 8 positions, and particularly the first 6, but also including where the arm is parallel. So release point is important to see where is the ball coming out. It should not come out in the front side position or the back side position or anywhere in between those lines. Otherwise, you let it go too early, and the ball flight has a specific appearance. So the important thing of these keyframes is that they allow you to coach the mechanics and watch ball flight to be able to do that, and you can correlate those and be 100% correct. So I can watch a ball fly and be able to tell somebody what they did wrong using just those 6 core positions, including the other 2, and be accurate almost 100% of the time.
Well, so these last 3 keyframes for me are pretty easy. You know, we were talking about what to look for to mark the right keyframe, you know, up till now. But obviously, release, you know, when it comes out of his hand, that's pretty easy one there. 465, you know, is where I think almost any of us would put it. Same thing with arm parallel. When he gets his arm right there, you marked 472. Again, either that one or that one. Pretty obvious. And then finish 496. What's your key for finish? You mark right there.
Yeah, 2 things. When your arm's parallel, you want to notice that make sure they pronate, or that their index finger and thumb and their hand turns down. So when you see that, you'll see his thumb down, point down to the ground, and now we know that that's the correct release position, that he has snapped his wrist or accelerated his wrist, is the term I use, and pronated to allow the ball to spin off his fingertips. The really important thing of finish is the arm needs time to decelerate. And so you have to continue that arm going across your body to enable it to slow down at a speed that won't injure yourself. And that's really important. Your body will only allow your arm to go as fast as it can decelerate. So you really need to work your scaps and the back part of your shoulder and work hard on the deceleration muscles. Otherwise, you can't reach your full potential with your arm in terms of acceleration. So the finish allows your arm to decelerate, and an indicator of that is the fact that you see Bren, his arm is all the way on his chest now. So he allowed his arm to accelerate to the throw, through the throw, and then decelerate after the throw. When you see guys that aim the ball, they're decelerating when they release the ball. So we can see that he didn't do that by how he finishes.
Right. So they're throwing darts. He let it go.
Yes.
So you've marked the position there. I'm on 496 where his arm meets his chest.
That's correct.
Okay. So with that, coaches, let's do this. Let's save this, which Bill already had, and let's go over to Adam. Now, Adam is one of the high school players that Bill also coaches that we shot on that same day, and let's just go ahead and put Adam in motion here. And what we'll do is we'll go through now. You know, we had the benefit of having already marked up, you know, in keyframed Bren, but let's go ahead and do it just to kind of show, you know, how quickly it can be done. Now, what we've done here, coaches, is we've gone ahead. If you hit load, rather than type all of those in, you can just go down to, you can select ball as your sport, and we've gone ahead and put the QB throw, you know, right in the system. So you can say use that template. Now I don't have to type all of those. And looking for two-hand, Bill, help me find.
Okay. He's going to cross over. Yeah. When he hits his balance step, it'll occur. If he's going to hitch up here, it'll occur when his back foot hits. So, okay, he's in his balance step now, so it's right in there. You can see his fingers start to come off right there.
Yep.
So that'd be two-hand.
Yeah, let's make that two-hand. And what I can do is, you know, obviously I can look down here and see frame 163 and type it in, but I can also just have the Telestrator, if I'm parked on two-hand, I can use this button to say set it to where I currently am. So with that, we'll roll forward to, now even I can do this, Bill, front touch would be right there.
Yes.
All right. So WeightShift is, we said, when his back toe comes off the ground. So yeah, either one of those two frames right there.
Looks good.
All right. Now backside we used, and again, there's a couple measures here. We used, the back of the head and the front of the head. So I'm going to say, he's still behind the line right there.
Yes, that's good.
Okay. So front side is when he gets to there.
Yes.
Release. Again, easy frame to pick right there.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope what I'm showing here, coaches, is this, with what Bill's laid out for us, it becomes something that even as a, as a non-football, non-quarterback dad, I could keyframe this video, arm parallel, finish is when he touches the chest right there. And, in 30 seconds, I keyframe that video. I can now bring it to Bill and say, Bill, now, again, none of those were with judgment, and I have no ability at this point to, to critique that. But what I can do with Adam now keyframed is I can lock these two together, and I can jump them both to two-hand. And let me center them up here a little bit. And so now what we can do is I can just hover over these, and I can jump to each of the different frames. Now, Bill, again, this is a layman's, layman's insight here, but what jumps out to me is, like you said, Bill, Brent has turned the ball back, and Adam has not.
Yes, Adam did not cock his wrist, and if we went it back a little further, you could see that he basically pulled the ball straight up instead of loading it back, and that'll affect his velocity and be able to deliver when his elbow comes through and his arm speed. You can see there how Brent has the ball turned back, and Adam doesn't have it turned back, and that's wrist load. And sometimes they start cupping the ball, and it comes out wobbly because of that also. So I have a specific drill for each of these 8 positions that we can then communicate to Adam on how to fix that. That particular drill I would call ball drill, and we would just pre-position him in that position. So and he would work on that. So every one of these keyframes has a specific drill that we can do to help fix what we're looking at.
So these are not just style points, huh?
No, not style points. This is biomechanical efficiency to be able to reach your full potential, and these are absolutes. They're not, suggestions or recommendations. Those are little things that will allow you to be accurate and have greater velocity on the ball. So those are things that we fix. I've never been one as an athlete or coach that wants to coach things that don't have a direct effect on your performance. I think there's a lot of coaching out there that does that, and I've never been part of that theory. Whatever we do, we're gonna make sure they understand how it affects their performance. In this case, accuracy and consistency of mechanics.
So Bill, I know we could go for days on this, or you could go for days on this, and I could sit and listen for days. We're at 23 minutes, so I want to open it up to questions. Coaches, if you've got questions, there's a question pod in your GoToMeeting control panel. Please go ahead and type those in. And I think what this illustrates, and we don't have time to go through each step, but with these keyframes now, we can quickly jump. And part of the advantage of keyframes is that now both of these were shot at 120 frames a second. The Telestrator actually says 29 because the camera fakes it actually puts a 29 stamp, so if you play it on a PC, it'll play in slow motion. So that's not always accurate. That's actually grabbed from the video, from the raw video. But I think you can see, even if these were shot at different frame rates, once we've keyframed them, if we jump to backside, they're both going to be at backside. And again, we could go for days, and Bill can talk about what he looks for in each of these positions. But at this point, let's take a couple questions. Bill, first question from Mike. As a fellow coach with not enough time, I'm curious how you balance game preparation with mechanical adjustments like you've shown here.
Yeah, I do most of the hard mechanical work in the off season, and so I have a drill routine that I take them through that allows them to break down each of these positions, and we really work hard on that. When the season comes, I do that on separate days, so I pare back the mechanic work to 1 or 2 mechanic drills a day, don't do them all in one day because you just don't have the time. So, but if you lay that groundwork in the off season, that's really when they make the most gains mechanically, and then you have time to do that because you're not in performance mode. You know, there's two types of training mode, and one is developmental mode where you can get better, practice mode, and then there's game performance mode. And so I use the off season to spend my time, whether it's quarterbacks or any position, really making them mechanically sound. So when we get to the season, I can separate those essential drills so that over a 4-day period instead of trying to do them all in one less session. So that's how you can do that and still be able to coach scheme and coach your kids on what they need to do for that week to be ready for the game.
Okay. You know, as I'm rolling through these frames while you're talking, Bill, you know, again, without the mechanical background that you've got, I mean, it becomes obvious to even me, you know, if I were to be working with my son here, that at the point that we marked for position 3, you can see that Bren's hips are starting to square up, but he's completely facing us as far as his chest goes.
Mm-hmm.
And you see just the opposite, where Adam, not to beat up Adam, but, you know, Adam has completely, you know, committed his upper body, and he's square to the target at that exact same position.
Yeah, because he's younger and hasn't worked on it as long as Bren, and he's not able to separate his hips and shoulders as good as Bren does. And that's a repetition thing, but it's also a learned thing. Sometimes people look at guys and say, well, he can't throw. Well, it's not that anybody can't throw. It's just they haven't been taught the right mechanics and the right drills to be able to throw. We can all throw. The question is, can we throw with efficiency, and can we throw with separating our hips and shoulders to generate arm speed? And Adam's still working on that. But
right.
Yes, that's a good indicator. You can see Bren's chest, you can't see, and that's an indicator of hip-shoulder separation, which is a high correlation to arm speed, you know, bat speed, the whole 9 yards.
Well, and I think for Adam to see this, I mean, it's got to be a big help when you're out on the field working with someone and you say, you know, you're doing this, you're doing that, and if they don't feel it, you know, sometimes for me, I'm very visual. If I see it, then I can better address it.
No, you have to train the mind as well as you train the body, and when they do see that gives you gives them instant feedback to say, okay, now what drills do I need to do that? And there's some specific quarterback exercises that helps it shoulder and upper body separation with the hips, and so we can give him that. He sees that, and then we can monitor that improvement with technology like we have here.
Coach, question from Steve: as a non-coach and dad, is there a source that you can recommend that would help me tie the way the ball flies to the step in the throwing motion that is causing the problem?
Okay, so we want to say it again now about the step.
Is there a source that you can recommend that would help me tie the way the ball flies to the step in the throwing motion that is causing the problem? Absolutely.
The appearance of the ball will tell you which one of those stages that we just keyframed is they're having problems with. For example, if the ball comes out high, then he let it go too early. He didn't wait to let the ball get out in front of him. That's generally caused by instead of rotating all the way and shifting their weight, they have what we call vertical balance. So if you take it back to where his foot comes off the ground, instead of rotating the hips horizontally, you know, that their back hip will actually come up a little bit. Bren doesn't do that, but a lot of the younger kids do that. And so watching the ball flight will tie directly back into that. If the ball flies from a right-hander right to left, then generally they didn't stabilize their left side, they over-rotated. So tying the ball flight into this will enable you, if you don't have a lot of experience, to pick up on the mechanics. All you have to do is watch the ball flight. And so once I tell even the dads, I always have all the dads come with their sons or at least some other person that's going to work with them. And so I teach them, that's the way I teach them from is watch the ball flight, and then I tell them how that ties back into what mechanic they can coach them on. So,
well, you know, I think
can do that with total confidence.
Part of the answer to that, Bill, is I think we need to do another session. You know, what we tried to do today is lay the groundwork for just the keyframing. You know, again, to say, is there a set of steps that we can all agree on? And Bill's done a great job of nailing down those steps. That if we jump to those steps if we jump to backside, if we jump to front side, we can start to see these things. And now I think we just need, a couple hours of your insight on what are the fundamentally correct positions, the absolute must. We talked about the elbow being over the knee. We talked about hips rotating, that we're looking for in that keyframe. So I think we just need to start, stacking the bricks on top of the foundation that is the keyframes. One last question. The questions are kind of pouring in here from Michael. Is it important for the quarterback to stay tall after they release the ball?
Yes. You do not want to bend at the waist when you do that. The tendency when you bend at the waist is the ball will fly from high to low and you throw it in the dirt. So if you see a kid that threw it at a kid's knees or ankles, then what happened is he stopped his weight shift, his upper body weight shift has stopped, and he started, and his front knee locks out, and that causes that tilt. So staying tall with the upper body allows you to keep your knee bent and not unlock it prior to ball release. The front knee does unlock as the ball is releasing, but if you do that too early, what happens is you bend at the waist so you're like tipped forward, and that causes the ball to fly from out of your hand low. And so, yes, you need to stay tall so that your chest is tall, and that will keep your front knee from locking out too early.
There's another example of these two videos. You can see that Adam's knee is in a locked position here, and Brent's still got a lot of spring in his.
Yeah, and you can also see that Adam's really just doing a tricep extension when he lets the ball go because his shoulders are square way too early, but when he let the ball releases. So you see Brent still has about 10 degrees to go before he lets the ball go, and Adam's already square. In fact, he's fighting not to over-rotate, and so he's basically just releasing it and doing an arm extension. So the synchronization of we've got to get with Adam is, work on his hip-shoulder separation, and then help him to maintain his front knee so it stays bent all the way till he releases the ball. So
very interesting. Well, coaches, we're up against the time. I'm going to put this, if you're not familiar with our new format here, we've created a blog at getbetterfaster.tv, and we'll post these blogs, and also we'll post Bill's keyframes, and his indicators of what to do. And again, these are not judgmental. There's nothing about the absolutes of throwing here. That's just about how to mark the keyframes. And we're getting back in. We'll start talking about what to look for. Talk more in depth about what to look for at these keyframes. So you'll find that at getbetterfaster.tv. Please have your players, your parents, and fellow coaches go to that web URL, and up in the right-hand corner, just subscribe. And with that, I hope we've provoked some thought with this session. These webinars are produced solely to foster this conversation, and this conversation is about helping your kids get better faster. So like I said, you'll find this at the Get Better Faster blog. And with that, I'm Chaz Henry. For myself and my guest today, Bill Renner, thanks for tuning in.